There are a couple of universal things to learn about quoting. These rules apply regardless of the type of quote or the type of source. First of all, keep your quotation as brief as possible while being 100% accurate. Nothing kills your credibility faster than an inaccurate quote. A prose quote should be no more than 4 typed lines in your paper. If it goes longer, you must use a block quote. A verse quote of 3 or fewer lines of verse must include slashes to indicate the end of the first couple of lines. If you quote more than 3 poetic verses, you must use a block quote. Now, when the pronouns or verbs in your quote cause your sentence to become ungrammatical, you may change the tense or voice in order to be accurate. Whenever you change something, you must put your corrected material inside square brackets while omitting the original word. Let's look at an example. Let's say my original quote was, Odysseus appealed to Arete for guidance. In my paper, I am of course using the literary present tense, and I want to embed the quote in my own sentence. Here's how it would look. In Scheria, knowing he needs her help, Odysseus appealed to Arete for guidance. Now we know that that is a past tense verb and this is a present tense verb, so that doesn't match. So I'm going to change appealed to appeals, and I'm going to encase the entire word in a square bracket. That's my way of telling my readers that I had to change this word in order to make it grammatical. Then I would continue with my quote. As Nausicaa had instructed him to do. There we go, and then I would have my citation. So there it is. Now let's talk a little bit about the ellipsis. The ellipsis is a series of 3 periods with a space in between them. So use an ellipsis when you remove words from a quote to the point that the meaning of the quote changes. In other words, use an ellipsis when not using one gives a flawed interpretation of the sentence. Also use an ellipsis when you are subtracting words from the middle of your quote. Finally, use an ellipsis when you are joining sentences from different paragraphs. Typically, you do not need to use an ellipsis when you remove the beginning of a quote, providing you attach the quote to your sentence. Now a couple words about block quoting. Block quotes are always indented an additional 1 inch from the left margin. That means they will be 2 inches from the left edge of your paper. When you use a block quote, the indentation takes the place of quotation marks. Thus, you do not use quotation marks unless they are part of the piece you are quoting. Typically introduce a block quote with a colon. For block quotes, also keep the end punctuation even if it's a comma, a colon, or a semicolon. If it is one of those 3, a comma, colon, or semicolon, follow it additionally with an ellipsis before citing. Now, use a colon for formal quote introductions. If the quotation is an integral part of your sentence, you use a comma or no punctuation at all. That's going to depend on the sentence. Always use double quotation marks around your quotations, but single quotation marks around quotes within your quotation. And finally, when you make an in-text citation, include only enough information so that the reader can find the source on your work's cited page. And if you use 2 words by the same author, your parenthetical documentation will include both the last name followed by a comma and as many words of the title as you need to distinguish it from the other work, followed by the page number, etc. Now, for example, if I were quoting from Jane Austen's novels Pride and Prejudice and Northanger Abbey, a parenthetical reference to the first novel would look like this. We'd have the end of the quote, whatever that was, end parentheses, or end quote parentheses, Austen, comma, Pride, because that would distinguish it, and then 42, and parentheses, period. And that's how it looks.